Welcome back, everyone. It's been quite a while since my last video, but glad to be back. And I first want to apologize if you see some vertical black lines running through this video. I have no idea. I switched back from a GoPro camera to my Canon 7D Mark II for video, so hopefully I'll get that cleared up. I didn't realize until I started doing the editing here. So today we're doing the Daimler Esso Bus number 74 from Lesney Matchbox. These came in two colors from 1966 to 1968. They came in green, in which you see here, and a cream color. And then they introduced a red in 1969. And then red also was in 1970 to 71 in the Superfast version. So if you caught the beginning there, I just used a diamond head bit to flatten out that rivet head, if you want to call it a rivet head. That was the only thing that was holding it in, and I took my punch to loosen the two body parts. The plastic is in real good shape, and here's a little fuzzy thing in there. It looks like some carpet residue from kids obviously playing with it on a carpet. But the body's in pretty good shape. And considering that I have not seen a red version of 1969 casting, I decided to take this green one and turn it red. So now that it's apart, I got the wheels coming off here, and because these axles were so tight, I ended up using a needle file to file down the burr on the end of the axle. Yeah, it was a little fiddly, and I actually did the first one with a grinding wheel, and I did a slight bit of damage to the wheel itself. So this one I used a needle file by hand, and then used a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, to actually pry that tire off. It was just real fiddly. I didn't want to really damage another wheel and have to replace it. So what I did was I got enough of the burr down to take the wheel off, and then I put it in the drill, put some sandpaper, applied some sandpaper while it was spinning in the drill head. You'll see it coming up here. And took the rest of the burr down to take the wheels off, and then have a nice smooth surface for replacing it. It'll be easier to go back on. So this is a trick that I got from Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Not sure if he was the first one, but he was the first one that I saw do it. And yeah, trying to clean these axles sometimes is a little bit of a job. So as I stated in the beginning, these came in green and cream, 66 to 68. And then they introduced red in the standard wheel version in 1969, and then again in the Superfast versions in 1970 and 71. There is also a factory error, I don't know how many, that has a BP viscostatic logo on it rather than the Esso Petrol. I don't know how rare that is, but I know it does exist. And the scale of this model to the actual full-size bus is 1 to 121, not 1/64th scale. This is 1 to 121, according to one of the fandom wiki pages. So here I am just finishing up these axles, getting them cleaned up. And again, I really apologize for those two black lines that are running up. Hopefully, I've actually got another video that I've already done that I'll be releasing on the 13th that also has the black lines in it, so I'm hoping to now figure this out before the next video after that. So here I am. I already have the top half of the bus and some paint stripper, and now the rest of it is in there taking a nice bath. And I'll tell you what, I've been leaving these sit overnight. Anything that I do, I've just been leaving the bodies in overnight, and I do other portions of the project while I'm waiting. It just seems to be a lot less fiddly of the paint bits that are stuck on. If I leave it in overnight, it's really just a toothbrush and some water. Occasionally, there's some scrap paint left over. Um, so I'm changing my process of how I'm doing things. I'm trying to do 2 cars at a time, keep them in the paint overnight, and do it that way. So now I'm just taking a little soapy water that I keep under the bench in my Arizona iced tea container, since I have no running water in the basement. And we'll take the plastic bits and just give them a little soak and a scrub with a toothbrush. Here comes the toothbrush. These parts were really clean, surprisingly, since there's no window glass on this bus. So you would think it would be, even in the cleanest of circumstances, you would think that it was, considering you saw the condition of the vehicle itself, the body, you would think it would have been a lot dirtier inside. But it cleaned up nicely. Even the wheels were in good shape, so they cleaned up pretty good. And now I am on to the future floor shine. This is also another hack that I got from watching Marty's channel. The toothpick trick on the wheels, and then dipping your wheels in the future shine, and then I just use a paper towel to wick off the excess. And I make a little plastic solo cup version of Sputnik. And those will dry overnight. Actually, I think I let them dry 2 nights before I got back to doing the model. So we lather, rinse, repeat, and do this until we get all 4 wheels done. And move on to the next portion. It's actually a good way to do this. I've seen other guys do it with styrofoam when they do their black wash. Also another good way to do the floor shine too. And there you have it, Sputnik, ready to go, blast off. So that sits and dries, and then I dip my interior parts. This probably wasn't necessary since they were in such good shape. They really didn't need to be shiny. I could have left them the way they were, but when in Rome, actually it's more because I've got the future shine and I might as well use it. And since I decided to turn the model red rather than the original green color, why not? So now we get a plastic cover to place over so no dust gets on there, which is really overkill if you ask me. Sometimes we get a little overboard with this stuff, but if you're going to do it the right way or all the way. So here's my plastic parts are all cleaned up. And here's my funky focus with my camera. There you go. I'm going to have to adjust the tracking on that because that's really fiddly too. I should have just stayed with this camera originally and not went to the GoPro. So my plastic pieces for the interior are good, and we'll leave them sit. And then the body is ready for primer and paint. After a little buff action, I just take one of these fuzzy buffing wheels and just clean it up. Any residue of the dried paint stripper and paint that's left over. that's really it. I mean, the body was in good shape. There was no deep pitting or any heavy scratches or dings in it. So I didn't have to file anything or do any sanding. That was nice. Sometimes once you get started, you find one thing that's wrong or something that bothers you, then you go to the next thing. Before you know it, you've spent an hour like being very nitpicky and trying to fix stuff that's 50 years old. So this was in great shape. It just needed to buff out a little bit, get some of the impurities that were left behind, anything that was still stuck inside the body, and that's really it. Um, I do like to go sometimes the extra mile if something's a little wonky or really doesn't. It's really not pleasing to the eye, or if you're going to go ahead and paint it. And there you go, the magic of video. I skipped over the primer. I figured you didn't want to see primer. Here's what it looks like finished. This is um, Rust-Oleum spray can, just their standard red enamel paint. And I went with enamel because of the decal. I didn't want to have to put an acrylic red, then a gloss coat, because then when you have to put the water slide decal on, you could risk running the enamel or the acrylic paint. So I went right out of the rattle can, gloss red enamel. So the wheels are back on, and they look pretty shiny and glossy. Putting them back on, I used, again, the way I took them off was Marty's method, and the way I got them back on, Marty's method. I suggest you go to his channel and take a look at his stuff. So here's our glossy red finish out of a rattle can. I've been using a lot more rattle cans lately. So these decals I made myself. And you can see I have a whole mess of them on a sheet. So I got a good copy of something online, and then through the magic of Photoshop, I actually found a typeface that was close. And I'll show at the end, I have another original cream colored model that's still all original, and you can see the difference, if any. It's very moderate difference in my decal versus the original. If anybody would like a decal that's going to restore one of those, maybe we can trade up. Maybe you have something that I need, and maybe you have something to toss up for a pair of these decals. So this got a little fiddly putting it back in. I didn't realize. I don't know if I even still have it on. I may have cut it out, but the bottom half, the bottom plastic with the driver's seat, has this little flange in it that's supposed to go on top of the axles. And I actually broke one of the tabs. I thought it was supposed to go under. Here I'm putting it backwards. I'm putting the steering wheel on the back of the bus instead of the front. It's a good thing I'm not your bus driver, or we wouldn't go anywhere. So I had some problems here that you're not seeing. You do see a tip of a screwdriver, which was not a good idea. However, it was not a tragedy, as even though I broke one of the tabs off, it still went in, still worked. But now I know. And I should have paid a little bit more attention when I was pulling it apart, how it came apart. But no harm, no foul. It actually went back together. And I'm really struggling with this now. If I just did my live video and sound, there were some nice words that were coming out of my mouth. However, you can see I did manage to get it in. Here's where I made the awful mistake, thinking that it went under the axle instead of over the axle. Basically, I should have just plopped it right on the body and it would have been done, but don't know. I don't know where my head was. But we make mistakes. And then when I caught on, aha, the aha moment. There it is, right there, busted. I don't know. So I finally figured that, hey, this tab probably stays over the top of the axle, not on the bottom. You know why? Because the wheels aren't turning right now. You know, some days you're the Louisville Slugger, some days you're the ball. Anyway, I managed to get it back together. I filed down the post a little bit, and it was just enough to take part of the burr from when I used the deburring tool to get the axle or to get the rivet apart that the body snapped right back on, literally snapped in, and did not need any glue or any kind of adhesive to get that body back together. And there she is, all nice. It's really a nice model. I even like the super fast version. I think I have one or two of those that are sitting in a box. So now here is my uh, decal application. So I learned it's actually white decal paper. So I'm printing red ink and it's a full bleed. So even though there's bonder solution or a lacquer solution to protect the decal itself, what happens is sometimes if you submerge these in water because it's a bleed, you don't really know how long you don't know how much time you really have to get it out of the water. And sometimes the red or any color that's bleeding off of the end of the sheet or the decal sheet, it will run. The ink will run, even though it's got a decal bonder spray on it or a lacquer spray over it. Some people use polyurethane to protect them when they're creating them. I decided to use the wet paper towel or wet sponge method where you just put the paper backing on a paper towel, let it soak up a little bit, and as long as you can start moving the decal, you're good to go with less chances of any ink running, the underlying ink running, I should say. And there you go. And then you've seen my method before where I use Q-tips. I'll hold the decal on one end and then lightly rub the water and air bubbles out from underneath. And once I have enough, or I think I have enough of the air and water out from underneath the decal, I just take a piece of paper towel and press and make sure I get it all out, and then poof, there you go. So there's one side done. And now I do the same thing with the other side. I take the decal, place it on the wet paper towel. So I'm really still trying to figure out. I know there's printers out there that will print white. Standard inkjet won't do that, so you're stuck with printing a lot of decals on white paper if it's got white in it. However, it leaves you very limited um, as far as that's why I'm telling you this process that I did. Anything that's going to bleed, if you're placing it on, printing it on a white background or even a regular clear background, if the color's supposed to bleed off the edge of the decal, this is the way to do it. You'll have less chances of ink actually running anywhere or just fading. So at least this has been my success. My anecdotal real life experience with this has been to do it this way when there's a bleed. I'd like to try and delve into the magic of creating more decals. It's a very painful process sometimes if you don't have good imagery to work with and you can't find any. Then you're kind of stuck. So here we go with decal number 2. And although sometimes it's hard to get that light touch to reposition or get a position that you're comfortable with, if you're uncomfortable doing stuff like this, just keep at it. It does come to you. The touch and the movement and muscle memory of how you're doing this. It does come. Um, you know, I realize some people, if you're spending $10 for a set of decals to do this, you don't want to mess it up. You can't. You just got to go for it, and practice with a piece of tape. On an unpainted body, something that you haven't finished yet. You know, try it with painter's tape or something like that, um, just to get your motions down. Maybe that'll help. Kind of like practice. And here we are with the final touch of microsol to make the decal soften up a little bit. So when I use microsol, I'll get enough of a bead on the brush, and then I wick off the extra into the rag or paper towel or something that I have available. I don't want it super wet. Sometimes it tends to, the reaction is that it kind of like when vinyl siding wrinkles, gets a bubble or decides to peel up. So get a nice amount on your brush and then just wick it off. You can always add more. It's harder to remove this. In fact, you'll end up peeling the decal up if you put a big puddle of it on there and now you want to try and take it off of the decal while it's on the body. Bad things, man. So use it sparingly. You can always add more. And that'll just soften up the decal a little bit and make sure it adheres to the model. And I think we are done. So here it is, the Daimler Esso Bus number 74, now in red. With some rattle can red from Rust-Oleum spray can. Really cool model. And for comparison, I'm going to bring in my cream version that's in actually really good survivor shape. I'm not going to touch it at all. And you can compare my decal, my homemade decal, and compare it to the original decal that's on the cream colored one if I ever bring it into the frame. There it is. It's pretty close. That's a little darker red. You can see my positioning of the Esso, the words Esso is a little different. But all in all, I think it's pretty close. And I'm happy with it. So that's it. A pair of beautiful Esso Extra Petrol Daimler Esso Bus number 74s. So until next time, I hope everybody is doing well. Like I said, it's been a while since the last video. This whole now two crises that we've experienced here. time for some unity. Maybe time for us to question some of the things that have gone on during this virus crisis. But I hope everybody's well. If you guys have any questions or would like to subscribe or leave comments, please do so. Um, I'm trying to build this channel as best I can, and hopefully now that the worst is over with this COVID crisis and my job gets back to normal, I'll be able to go once a month with these videos, or maybe twice a month. Hopefully I'm going to have another one up on the 13th because I had some extra time. So don't forget to like and subscribe, leave me comments, share info, whatever it is that you'd like to do. Just stay well. And until the next time, guys, be good and see you soon.